Hi, I'm Shanika Center. I am an ENL and living environment teacher at DeWitt Clinton High School. I am also the virtual content specialist for middle school ENL and science. So today's video, I am going to show you how to use or incorporate home language in your science classes. The lessons that I will address are the lessons for March 8th through March 12th. So when you're thinking about using the lessons provided by the Division of Multilingual Learners, you can look to slide 8. That gives you some tips on how to support your multilingual learners or your ELL students. So specifically, we're going to be looking at use of home language as a resource. So I'm going to give you some helpful pointers on how to actually use and why you should use home language in your classes. And this first video is only going to address dictionaries, so the first of 3 strategies. The following video will address the other 2 strategies. And then I'll go over some helpful pointers or tips when you're using these scaffolds or supports in your class. All right, so why should you use home language as a resource? So some believe that use of home language could actually prevent multilingual learners from learning the target language, in this case English, but actually studies show and research shows that using home language is an extremely valuable resource that can really help strengthen the connections between the native language and the target language. So what about Google Translate? Often teachers think that using Google Translate is the way to incorporate home language. And yes, Google Translate is really helpful, but it should be used very sparingly, and students' use of it should be supported. Texts are often not translated correctly on Google Translate. Formal or outdated versions of the language are often used when you're translating. If you copy and paste a full text into Google Translate, it really often does not come out in the way that students speak. Some students also have developing literacy in their L1 or home language, and that can also cause more frustration and confusion when students are trying to decode the text in their native language to then try to connect it to what you're teaching in the target language, or probably English. Google Translate, again, should be used very sparingly. And in the strategy that I'll talk about today, I'll kind of refer to using Google Translate in a much more productive way. Today, again, I'm only going to focus on dictionaries and show you how you can incorporate the use of dictionaries in the lessons. So the procedure for dictionaries that I follow is extremely easy. First, what you're going to do is select a few words. You're only going to include 3 or 4 words per lesson. You're not going to include 15 words, 20 words, because that's just going to overwhelm students. You want to really be selective about the words because you want students to be able to engage and use those words in a meaningful way. If you overload them with vocabulary words, they're not going to be able to remember them, and it's not going to be a productive activity. So again, only select 3 or 4 words, unless your students are higher level English speakers and they already have gained a lot of English vocabulary. You want to provide students with the picture of the word and the English version of the word. And then this is when you can use Google Translate. You can have students directly translate that word into their native language. Often when you pick a appropriate picture, students don't really need to use Translate because they can figure out what word you're trying to mean using the picture that's provided. So this is an example of a dictionary that I did with my living environment class. These students were transitioning level English speakers, so I did provide them with 6 vocabulary words rather than the 3 or 4 that I suggested earlier. To differentiate this, you can pick the highest transferable words, and then for your entering or emerging L's, and then provide the higher level transitioning, expanding L's with more words than that. So as you can see, I picked the words based on the aims or the objectives, and then I selected appropriate pictures. All right, so I'm going to show you how to use the dictionary strategy in the Grade 8, Unit 3, Lesson 69. This strategy, of course, can be used in most lessons, but I'm going to specifically look at this lesson because it's the start of a group project challenge. So this is a screenshot from the lesson objective, the presentation that shows the lesson objective. So this project is asking students to work in a group to answer the question, should we intervene on the behalf of species that are affected by environmental change or allow nature to take its course? So there are some high-level idioms and vocabulary words used in this text, in this question. Of course, environmental change is something that they've been talking about throughout this unit. So it does not necessarily need to be addressed in this dictionary unless it hasn't yet been addressed. Of course, again, it should have been addressed already because this is a key component of this unit. But if it has not been specifically taught or explained, students would probably need another opportunity to engage in breaking down this word or making meaning of this word before they start working independently on this group project. So the words that I would select if I were teaching this lesson would be intervene, species, and the idiom take its course, or nature to take its course. So again, why did I pick these words? So this lesson sequence is the start of the unit performance task. If I want students to be able to engage in the task that I'm asking them to complete, it's really important that they have meaning, or they've made meaning of this word, of these words. And the beginning of the unit, the sequence, is the best time to introduce these words and to give students an opportunity to do a little activity to help make connections between their native language and the English question. So using this template, I would put the English word here. So the first word, let's just start with species. So I would put in the word species here, and then I would go to Google, type in species, and then go to images, and then I would find an image that would represent the meaning of the word that I'm trying to get students to understand. Of course, species is a pretty easy one because there is only one definition for it. So I would take this picture, I would drag it, and then plop it into the template. If you're having trouble with dropping the picture, you can play around with these texts. Sometimes it's easiest to go wrap text and then fix position on page, and that will get the picture to go really wherever you want it. And you want to leave this yellow part here because this is where students are going to write their translation or their meaning of this word. Then I would go to the next box, and the next word, intervene. So I would, of course, go back to Google. I would type in the word intervene, and then I would look for a picture that represents the meaning that I want students to have. So I think that this would be a pretty good, it's a GIF too, so that's even better. I do like to use GIFs too because when we're talking about process words, having that GIF that shows the process is much more helpful than having a still picture of it. So again, I would take the GIF, I would drag it over to my dictionary, and then I would drop it in, and then remove this, intervene, and bring it up. And then you have your first two entries of the dictionary. So me personally, I would use this dictionary as part of the do now for students, so they're able to start off the lesson making these connections between their native language and the words that we expect them to use throughout. So if you have any questions or comments or concerns, feel free to email me at scenter@schools.newyorkcity.gov. I'm going to be posting a second video that addresses the other two strategies that will help use home language as a resource in your science classrooms. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free to email me. And if not, I look forward to seeing you in our next video. Thank you.